New Buddha-ware Dhamma Talks. Jeff Hunt presents a talk on some aspect of the Buddha's teaching.
I thought we'd talk about mindfulness in a bit more depth, because it's an interesting thing that one can think that one is practicing mindfulness for quite a while when one hasn't quite got it yet. On the other hand, some people get it immediately. I don't think I got it immediately. I think we often think that mindfulness is simply about paying attention. Certainly there isn't any mindfulness developing without attention, but mindfulness is more about a certain kind of awareness than it is about attention, right? But attention is an important element. So what I'm going to do is analyze it, break it down a bit with a simple example of doing something. I want to split it into 5: doing, saying, thinking, being aware of, and pure awareness. Now, language tends to break down at the end, you may notice. So doing, right, so let's see, let's have a simple doing. So this is a doing. Rang the bell, right? But I did it. It was something I did. It's an action. And of course the Buddha is interested in action, and that's why we have a whole part of the teaching is right action. Okay, doing doesn't require words, doesn't require thought, doesn't even require consciousness. A worm gobbling up leaves in the soil is doing something. It's not thinking about it. And doing very successfully. And most of what's going around us in life is actually a doing without any saying or thinking involved at all, or consciousness. Which is interesting, isn't it? Because some of that doing is very, very complex, very intricate, and very beautiful too. You just watch a little bird on a twig looking for a caterpillar. And you think, and then it's preening itself. It's all doing, but it's not saying anything about it. And it's not thinking to itself, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. So there's a doing. Okay, so I don't say anything, I just hit the bell. Now, the one reason that we have bells, it may not have occurred to you, is that it's to avoid saying anything. Because we are going into another realm when we start saying things. Saying is a form of doing, you might say, but doing is not. But saying is. But at the same time, you can do without saying, or you could say without doing. So I could say, I'm ringing the bell. Nothing happening. I lied. So they tend to split. Now, this, you might think, well, where is this going actually? It's going up a kind of an escalator. At the bottom, there is doing. And life is all doing. It's all doing. There's no saying or thinking. But you can see that, some creatures more developed do communicate. They get into communicating, right? It's a form of saying. Now, what are we doing in mindfulness? Well, we are moving beyond this stage. If you're going to do anything, you should be aware of doing it. If you're going to say anything, be aware of your saying it. So there's right speech as well. So, do something, say that I'm doing something. Next step, think of what it is that you're doing. So now, ring the bell. No saying. Now I'm going to say, I am ringing the bell, right? Right, there was a doing and then there was a saying. Now I'm ringing the bell and I'm thinking to myself, I am ringing the bell. Right? Or you could be saying to yourselves, that's what thinking is, form of saying to yourself, the bell is ringing, or Jeff is ringing the bell. That's a thinking. You haven't said it. So now there's a thinking without a saying. You could also have a thinking without a doing. Of course, we human beings are very good at that. We think of all sorts of things all the time. Some of them are about the past, some of them are about the future, some of them are fantasies, some of them are wonderful things that might happen, some of them are violent things. But perhaps fortunately, sometimes they stay in the realm of thought, right? And what has this got to do with mindfulness? Well, what are we doing when we're being mindful? It's not really a doing in the sense that it involves anything muscular or anything physical. It's not a saying, because I don't sit there saying, I am being mindful, I'm being mindful, I'm being mindful. And actually, I don't know whether you are being mindful or not, and you don't know whether I'm being mindful or not. Right. Now, this is where, now we go up a step. You see, we've gone from doing to saying, now to thinking. Now, the first confusion is that when I'm being mindful, I'm actually thinking about what I'm doing. And beginners often make this mistake. And it's okay to do that because it's actually a kind of a crutch to help one's mind to direct itself to the ongoing experience. So, for example, when you teach walking meditation, right, the instructor will sometimes say, okay, say to yourself, I am walking, or walking. Say, I am walking, but it's another step to say, just leave out the I and say, walking to yourself. So it's a form of thinking. So now you're thinking about the walking. Now, some people get stuck there because then they think, oh, I'm being mindful, because I'm thinking about the walking. Now, I know when someone's thinking about their walking and got stuck there because they're trying to walk in a special way. If you're just walking and not thinking about the walking, then you don't try to walk in a special way. But if you're going to start doing something like this, right, and I watch it and I think that person's thinking too much. Because there wasn't any instruction about doing it in a special way, but they're thinking about the walking, and therefore they're walking in a special way. But there is no special way to do walking meditation. But we you can see what's happening here. We are moving in a direction. We've gone from doing to saying to thinking. Now we want to go a bit further than that. There are 2 more steps actually, the last of which is very difficult for most people. The next step is not thinking about your walking, but being aware of what is going on. Right? But it's not anything that requires thought or words. So how does that work out? Well, the way we usually put it is be aware of the sensations that we are calling walking. You see, it's even difficult to explain it. So in other words, it's like an awareness of the experience itself. So what is the experience? So another way that is sometimes put is, what is the bare experience? Well, the bare experience is something that's moving here and it's coming into... So now I feel a sensation, right? So I could say to myself, sensation. That's why we talk about sensations when we're talking about mindfulness of body, which includes mindfulness of walking. So because what are we trying to do then? We're trying to get away from the thought of walking to the actual, ongoing, real-time experience itself, which is a sensation. It's that contact with the ground. But I've just called it something because I'm talking, I'm saying, right? But we don't want to do that. See, this is where it gets difficult, because I can't convey it to you without using words. So then you've got to think it's about thinking of it in a particular way. But it's not. It's about dropping all the words, whether saying words or thinking words. Thinking words are the words in one's head. So it's just the sensation itself. Now, when you're walking, what you'll find is that if you're mindful of the whole, you could do this in different ways. You could do it in a holistic way, which is being mindful of the whole actual ongoing experience of walking, which involves your staying upright, the motion, all the sensations, or you could narrow it down to say just the sensations of the contact with the ground. Okay? Now, what has happened? Now we're at level 4 now. This is non-thinking experience. This is awareness, but it's awareness of something, which leaves us space for another step. Now, have you followed me so far? You getting it? Yeah. All right. Now, because we are all human beings and we spend a lot of time communicating, and that communication has now been internalized at an evolutionary level we are at, we find it very difficult to break away from thinking. Very difficult. It's become part and parcel. We think of ourselves, I think of myself as a thinking thing, as the philosopher Descartes said, right? So I'm a thinking being. That my essence is thinking. It's not your essence. You couldn't survive 1 minute if that's all that you were doing. You wouldn't last a millisecond, right? All the real important things going on have nothing to do with thinking, actually. Because you look at life, how does it get on without any thinking? It's amazing, isn't it? It's really amazing if you attach a lot of importance to thinking, of course. So that's what we're trying to get to this level 4, is something is, the most neutral term we can use is that it's something arising. It's arising and it's falling away. Arises, falls away. Everything arises and falls away. Invite the bell, it arises, gradually it falls away. The whole of life arises and falls away. It's all arising and falling away. So you're beginning to notice the characteristics of your experience when you're becoming aware of it. So now what is going on here is a kind of non-thinking awareness of something. Does that make sense? Now, how do we get from step 4 to step 5? Because getting to step 4 is difficult enough, in a way, but it can be done, and most people can get there. At some point, it'll click with what it is that's going on. Well, stage 4, it's awareness, it's non-thinking awareness of an arising. Now, we need another little breakthrough here because of that little word of. The of suggests that there is a subject, there's an object, and they're joined by an of. I am thinking of, or I am aware of. There's an of. So there are two things now. There's I am still there, you see. That's the key thing. I am still there. The Buddha's trying to get us to drop that as well. Now, is it possible to move from awareness of to awareness? Now, this sounds very, very peculiar. But believe me when I say every single mystical or spiritual teacher that there has ever been is pointing precisely to this. It doesn't matter whether that person is called Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, Sri Ramana, Radhakrishnan, Buddha, they're all pointing to the very same thing. Which you can't. Now, you see, the difficulty here is now putting into words, because we've just said that we are letting go of words. So now I have to use some words, but then you have to use a sort of a leap of understanding, because in your understanding you will still could have insight into it, but actually it's a kind of experience. So it's about a direct seeing, as the Buddha would put it. Right. So it should be possible, and it is possible, because there are lots of accounts of it, to let go of the I that is aware of. If the I has been let go of, then the object itself ceases to be an external object, because now there is no internal and external. There is no of. There is just awareness. So do you see what mindfulness is really all about? It's really taking us... Mindfulness, you see, is a description of a process, but it also gives us the impression that it's the description of an attainment. But actually, mindfulness is only a word for a process that is taking us to a place of perfect peace in which you can understand how all our reality is being generated. And that generation of our reality causes us a lot of suffering and anxiety. When you can understand how, from the point of view, if you like, of nirvana, how that is all generated, and then you can see how the suffering is generated, then you learn how to let go of that. Well, you don't need to be doing that. We're all extremely ignorant to be generating so much suffering for ourselves.
New Buddha Way lets go of East and West and starts afresh in the life we have now. For more information, visit www.newbuddhaway.org.